Okay, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swam Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasesha Sunya Bhari Pashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So, wow, here comes Dhruva Maharaj, another exalted guest. Okay, so just continuing, this is chapter 14. It's the last chapter in part
दिखाई
2. Chapter 15 begins part 3. Let's see if we might get there today. And we've been describing a exciting topic, the goal of our life, which is devotional service and love of Godhead. That's what we are practicing, devotees. We're practicing to achieve love of God. So I'll just go through slides that we've covered at the moment. Just as an introduction, Maharaj speaks about the different ways in which Krishna may manifest to a devotee at the stage of ecstatic devotion, also known as bhava. Okay, one of them was spruti. That's where the Lord momentarily manifests himself through the agency of his internal potency within the mind, stroke heart of a devotee. And it's different than using our intelligence to meditate upon Krishna. You know, you can look at the deity of Krishna, then you close your eyes and you can think of Krishna. That's good. But this is where the spiritual world, the internal energy, actually touches the sadhaka, and Krishna manifests there within the heart. That's called spruti. Spruti. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And then the other one was Shakshat Darshan. This is where the Lord actually appears face to face. Yeah, he actually appears, manifests there you could say Krishna is multi-dimensional, but one can see him three-dimensional. And usually the whole spiritual world, of course, is there along with Krishna. So he will manifest there. That's called Shakshat Darshan. Yeah. And then we've also spoken about, okay, that's quite exalted. Those that bhava, they get to see Krishna. But even non-devotees see Krishna. It was an interesting discussion. But they don't see the same Krishna that the devotees do. It's like it's like in a bus, like Shishupal saw Krishna, but he hated Krishna. He was very envious of Krishna. So he didn't see the same Krishna that the gopis saw or that Arjuna saw. Not, not it was in a bus. Still, that a bus is very powerful in of itself, and one can get liberation from that by seeing Krishna. So we spoke about that. And then Maharaj went on to describe that sometimes those at the stage of ecstatic devotion, a stage of prema or bhava, they can behave in inconceivable ways. They might not, yeah, they may behave in quite alarming ways by dint of their ecstatic devotion and their internal absorption in Krishna. So we spoke about that a little bit. And everyone know who this is. Nityananda. Nityananda Triodasi tomorrow there in the UK. He's kicking Shivananda Sain because Shivananda Sain was organizing the devotees' pilgrimage from Bengal from Vrindavan to Puri, I think, yes. And he was in charge of making all the arrangements, but somehow or another, there was not arrangements were made so well at one point, and they had to wait for Prashadam. So you know what it's like when devotees are waiting for Prashadam. Well, they're waiting to be accommodated. So Nityananda kicked Shivananda Sain, yeah, and he cursed his children to die. Of course, his wife wasn't very happy about that. Anyway, we described about that. We won't go so much into it because we spoke about it last week, and we want to get going on this week's subject. And then this is beginning, here we spoke about Prabhupada. himself as an example. Himself, he very much managed his ecstasies, or Krishna managed his ecstasies for him, so he could spread with great intelligence and great diligence and create the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. I think I mentioned last week that Krishna's or Prabhupada's ecstasies were manifest in his purports. And I was thinking the other day, actually, I was just contemplating on that there's manifestations of ecstasies called Sattvika Bhava, where there's emotions that one can, there's emotions or spiritual emotions where one decides to express themselves, and there's spiritual emotions which just manifest themselves regardless of one's intelligence. So Sattvika Bhava. Not mean, yeah, so what I mean here, trying to say is that Prabhupada's ISKCON movement, you could say, it's a manifestation of Prabhupada's ecstasy of a love of God, Sattvika Bhav. Yeah. Anyway, bit of esoterical meditation there. ISKCON is Prabhupada's Sattvika Bhav ecstasy. All right. So that was again last week. And now we're going to begin. That was just an introduction. Of course, the subject of love of Godhead is a big subject, and I'm not qualified to teach it. I'm not qualified to understand it, but at least it's fun reading about it. Yeah, we can, not just fun, but it's important for us to understand something about it. So to help us through that, that was just an introduction. Now this is a definition here that's given of prema. So this is from Bhakti Rasmriti Sindhu. Rupa Goswami gives a definition of Vaidhi, of devotional service in practice, and devotional service at bhava, and devotional service in prema. So we're going to expand a little bit on this verse here. Yeah, so this is a definition of it. Hopefully by the time we finish this evening or this morning for you, we will understand this a bit more. So when that bhava softens, that bhava is what we've just been speaking about. When it softens the heart, when it softens the heart completely, becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord, and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of God, by learned scholars. And yeah, I had the translation, I had the Sanskrit for the verse here. I put it on the wrong slide. Yeah. Shanyam Mishritta Swando Mumat Vaiti Dayam Kataha Bhava Eva Sanduratma Bude Prema Nagachati. So very condensed. So now as definitions given, other definitions given by Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma, Prahlad, and Uddhava. And basically describe it as it's a state in which the consciousness of devotees is unflinching. It's very condensed. So I looked up the word Sandratma. I looked up the Sanskrit word, and the definition is quite interesting. This is here. Where is it now? Hare Krishna. Okay, so you ready? So Sandratma, this condensed, this unflinching, it means of dense and concentrated essence, something that's fully compacted, intensely present, and undiluted. Yeah. Dense, solid, compact, and concentrated. So it's fullness without gaps, not thin, not mixed, and not distracted. Yeah, often our devotion is distracted. Yeah, often our devotional acts may be mixed and not very fixed. So this is yes. So this is not love of God. So love of God is this. Yeah, It's unflinching. Yeah. And there's sense of a sense of ownership. That's quite an exalted
Thank you.
state. Hare Krishna devotees have just joined us. Thank you for joining. Any questions as we go? As
Hare
usual,
Krishna.
please feel free to ask. If you could mute if you're not speaking, that would be great. Yeah. So this is quite a very, as you can imagine, an exalted status where there's a sense of ownership, which means the devotee is in a sense of being on the same platform as Krishna, like the cowherd boys, or even being superior to Krishna, like Mother Yasoda. Yeah. So this is a love of Godhead, the one that is a sense of ownership towards Krishna. Yeah. So um, yes, such devotees think of him and no one else as the object of love. Yeah. If you read the accounts, if you read Krishna book, you read other books about Krishna's pastimes, the Govinda Lilamrita, and you very much get that sense that the inhabitants of Vrindavan, these great Ragatmaka devotees, they are completely absorbed in Krishna. He is their complete object of love. Uh, so, okay. So, you don't have the Sanskrit, do you? So, anyway, I just read the translation to the Sanskrit. So, Samyan Mashmrita Swanta. So, the heart is completely softened. Yeah. Mamat Vaitiyakantakaha. It's marked by intense, overwhelming feeling of possessiveness. That's known as mamata towards Krishna. And it's concentrated and condensed. Yeah. So it's emotional state. Yeah. Okay. As I say, all we can do is read about it. Yeah. Such an exalted state of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So just like the definition of bhava, then we gave the primary characteristics and the secondary characteristics. So the same is being done here with prema. The primary characteristic, again, it's this deepened state of ecstatic emotion. So at the stage of bhava, of ecstatic devotion, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. So prema is the deepest aspect of that emotional attachment to Krishna. Yeah. So that's the idea, is that as we're practicing Krishna consciousness, even as practitioners, hopefully our attachment to Krishna, even for us, should be becoming deeper. Our attachment to the holy name becoming deeper. Yeah. And that's the idea. It should continue. But often we get distracted by the material energy. So then we have to come back to cultivating that attachment to Krishna. But at this stage, there is no impediments in the way of a devotees within their heart. The heart is completely saturated in love for Krishna. So that's the primary characteristic. It's a deepened state of ecstatic emotion. The secondary characteristic, this is the cause of the primary. It's the complete softening of the heart. Yeah, the heart becomes completely, even at the stage of bhava, the heart becomes very soft and exhibits different emotions. So at the stage of prema, one's heart is completely melted with the love for Krishna. Yeah. So yeah, the stage of bhava, the stage we've been describing before, the idea, the sense of that I belong to Krishna, I am Krishna's. But here at prema, it's the other way. Krishna is a mine. Yeah. Um, yes. Yeah, Marge mentions here that this transformation of the sense of belonging to one isn't of intense ownership is not sudden or artificial. So as we was mentioning, it takes place progressively. Like before bhava, there's attachment, a shakti, yeah. And that then it just matures. The mellows of attachment just mature. So in ecstatic devotion, bhava devotees, they realize their eternal relationship with Krishna, but only in principle and not in practice. You understand? So they relate to Krishna. They have a sense of a specific identity in service to Krishna, either as a gopa or gopi or an elder. They have a strong sense of that relationship, but they're not situated in it. So that creates a great greed to obtain that position. So that's you follow. So Ektaswara Bhava, they do realize their eternal relationship with Krishna, but not in the full detail. They understand in principle. I think we gave this example before, where just like if someone goes to the pictures or someone is looking through the door, it's like in a cinema, and they're looking at the big screen, but they can't get, but they're watching the film. But the stage of pure devotion, they're actually in the film. They're actually taking part in it. The stage of bhava, they're just watching it through their inspirations in their meditation. They're completely become completely attracted to, but they're not actually taking part in the pastimes. So that's why it's very important for what is devotees who are practicing a sadhana, a very advanced sadhana of meditation upon Krishna in his pastimes, that one shouldn't imagine oneself as taking part in the pastimes. That's called taking it very cheaply. You know. That is by invitation only. So one shouldn't artificially put oneself as taking part in Krishna's pastimes. One may meditate upon Krishna's pastimes, but one is meditating as an observer. And one can do that even before the stages of bhava. Yeah, one can even practice that at the stage of a shakti, the stage of being steady, nishta. Yeah, that's a particular practice called a practice of a Raganuga sadhana, but one doesn't meditate that they're taking part in the pastimes. It's just to aid their absorption. It may aid their absorption in Krishna. Such a meditation may be employed. Otherwise, devotees can be happy just by chanting the holy name itself. And from the sound of that, then the pastimes, Krishna name, form, qualities, and pastimes will manifest from that chanting without the fence. Yeah. So we're just going different. We've just gone back a bit to the stage of nishta, where one may be practicing a type of smaran. But here, what we're speaking about here, this is another level completely. Okay. So yeah, now at the stage of bhava, their attachment is not quite mature, so that's why it doesn't qualify devotees to enter into Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. So now also here, another, yeah, I'll just read this part here. This is the development of intense possessive love, accompanied by a variety of ecstasies, and the unprecedented happiness of directly serving Krishna. These feelings cause the condensed and intensified ecstatic emotions characterized of love of God. The heart already softened by ecstatic devotion melts with intense feelings of possessiveness. This extreme tender-heartedness has two states of being. I'll just read this section here. Permanent composure or serenity. Yeah. Often, hopefully, we see that in our advanced senior devotees. They have this sense of being perfectly composed and very peaceful within, very composed. So, and that's because they have deep attachment and affection for Krishna. Yeah. So, so this permanent tenderness of heart, um, it makes devotees naturally composed. Yeah. So this is the mood in which they serve Krishna. So this makes these devotees steady, empowered, and most importantly, they're very compassionate to the extreme. Just like Nityananda's appearance day there tomorrow for yourselves. In Mayapur here it's on Saturday. So this is a symptom of Lord Nityananda. Extreme compassion. Why does he have extreme compassion? Because his heart, he has extreme love, and his heart is very soft. Yeah, his heart is this soft-heartedness, and that's the original um, nature of the jiva. Actually, is to be soft-hearted. That's the original nature of the jiva. But the material world and the free modes of material nature and everything that goes on in the material world makes the heart very hard. Yeah, so that's why the idea is that devotional service eventually helps to soften the heart to its original state. And yeah, Maharaj writes here, Srila Prabhupada displayed his soft-heartedness in various ways, such as how he in the face, stood fast in the face of overwhelming odds, or how he cried out the compassion for the souls lost in the humdrum of day-to-day material life. Yeah. We heard those stories where Prabhupada would just sometimes, and he had, I think this was happening on Oxford Street, so I was told, where Prabhupada, his devotee was describing how Prabhupada was in the back of the car and he was observing everyone doing their stuff, shopping, etc. And Prabhupada was crying out of compassion, doing the humdrum day-to-day activities. Prabhupada had so much compassion. Another time he was watching some retired persons play golf. You know, what do you do in the last stages of life? You try and put a ball in a hole. But actually, the last stages of life is meant to develop. It is to engage in intense hearing and chanting of Krishna. So Prabhupada was very, very compassionate. Yeah. And there's a wonderful story as well where describes how Radharani, she feels this great compassion. Um, This is in Boma Vrindavan, this is in Radhakund. And some children, they were tormenting a jackal. You know, there's jackals here in Mayapur, you can hear them every night. Yeah. So they were tormenting a jackal. They was actually lighting a fire just by the jackal's den. Yeah. And of course, the jackal was crying. And when Radharani heard this crying, she thought, no one cries in distress in Braj. What is this crying? Yeah. So jackal was crying pitiful cries. Yeah. So then she interceded on the jackal's behalf and she gave it shelter. Yeah. As actually one of her associates. So this is the softness of heart with great compassion. Yeah. Um, Now, yeah, described here as well. Yeah, sometimes devotees, when they're in contact with something or someone that stimulates their remembrance of Krishna, they become overwhelmed with ecstatic symptoms. Uh, so this soft-heartedness, sometimes they may laugh, cry, or speak unintelligently, exhibit extraordinary behavior. Now, he's described also Lord Shiva. He became so absorbed in kirtan, in the love of God, that he didn't notice his clothes had fallen off. Right? That would be a pretty interesting kirtan. Devotees are just dancing and dancing. So Lord Shiva in great ecstasy. was so absorbed. But the point we really want to get to here is this discussion here about the different dispositions of the heart. Now, I've gone into the nectar devotion here more. I've kind of, Maharaj speaks about it in Suddha Bhakti Cintamani, but is, but is, but I've gone into the nectar devotion to give some more details of this because it's a very interesting subject. So, devotees have different dispositions of heart caused by this ecstatic love, or yeah. So their hearts kind of reflects in their mental disposition. So chitta vritti. Yeah. So this mental disposition, it can manifest in two aspects. It reveals itself either as steadiness and composure. So steadiness and composed, or as we mentioned, overwhelming ecstatic symptoms. So in other words, so when devotees, they're able to subdue their inner ecstasies, they are composed. Now, when they're unable to control them and they get overwhelmed, they may disrupt their normal behavior. So this will be unique to each devotee. So whether the symptoms that result from a softened heart, whether softened by permanent love, that's one's stahi bhav, one's relationship with Krishna, or transitory ecstasies, and that's known as rasa. So the different pastimes that happen in a day in Radha Krishna's pastimes, in the pastimes in Vrindavan, they may stimulate different ecstasies, and that will be exhibited according to the devotee's relationship with Krishna. So Rupa Goswami, he speaks about the dispositions of an ecstatic heart as being hard, kakasa, or soft. Now, this hard doesn't mean the hard-heartedness. It means this gravity. Yeah, we'll explain more. So Prabhupada says, when there is an ecstatic sensation within the mind, the golden heart or grave heart is not agitated. So a devotee may have a disposition of a kakasha, hard, golden heart. So there may be there may be great ecstasy going on within their chitta, within their chitta vritti, within their mind, but you may not notice it. It will manifest as being completely composed, but within there's great ecstasy, but it doesn't manifest without. Yeah, so that means they have a golden heart. Rupa Goswami describes it like that. So this is what it means, hard, kakasha. Yeah. So Prabhupada says, when there is an ecstatic sensation within the mind, the golden heart or a grave heart is not agitated, but the soft heart immediately becomes agitated. Yeah. So of course, there's material examples of this. Perhaps we can have some experiences. Sometimes we're feeling a great happiness within, or a great ecstasy within, even at the stage of practice. But we can manage to keep it within. Sometimes not. Yeah, when we become very ecstatic, and especially in kirtan, in kirtan, it's quite easy to become ecstatic. That's a no. Yeah. Okay. Um, Now, Como, that's where I got some, so we can understand it a bit more here. So this is hard heart. So Rupa Goswami, he uses three adjectives to describe a hard disposition. Again, we're speaking about the disposition of heart of devotees at the ecstatic love and beyond. So one is which described heavy. One's heart is like gold, Krsna, or grave. One's heart is like an ocean, that's Gambhira, or big. One's heart is like a big city. or it can be, and soft-heartedness, or lagista, it's like cotton, shallow, like a small puddle, or tiny, like a small cottage. All right, let's explain what they all mean. Okay, so Rupa Goswami, he just compares Kaska heart to a gold and a Kamal heart to cotton. So, in other words, the gold, because strong wind does not move a gold brick, and even a slight breeze will toss the cotton. So, devotee may be of these different dispositions. So, similarly, a strong ecstasy is not detected in a devotee with a gold heart, because his heart is heavy like gold, Garishta. So you could say Prabhupada was often like this, Garishta. That says, as Prabhupada was often very grave. There's that one time Mother Jamuna, she came across a picture when Prabhupada was at 26 Second Avenue. The picture was taken by a local newspaper. And Prabhupada looked very, very grave. And she said to Prabhupada, "Oh, Prabhupada, you look so sad there." Prabhupada said, "That was a moment of great ecstasy." So, of great ecstasy. So often you see this in advanced devotees, often they're very grave. Yeah. And the reason why they're very grave could because there's great ecstatic emotions going on within their heart. So they're like, so the particular disposition, they're like gold, they're like heavy. So now if someone's very soft-hearted, even again, sometimes even not on this platform, you hear some devotees very soft-hearted, isn't it? They cry at the slightest. I mean, there's one devotee, I'm sure I won't mention his name, in London. He cries, he can cry 10 times a day. He's very soft. He's a great Vaishnava, but he's very soft-hearted, you know. So there are material examples of this. Yeah. So anyway, state of ecstatic emotion. Devotees, even a slight, like just like cotton, by a slight breeze, you can note it kind of moves, because the heart is like cotton. It's like gista. Yeah. Um, this is from Nectar Devotion. Just read here. The heart of one who is highly elevated and grave is compared to gold. If one's heart is soft and gentle, his heart is compared to a cotton swab. When there is an ecstatic sensation within the mind, the golden heart or grave heart is not agitated, but the soft heart immediately becomes agitated. That's from Nectar Devotion. Okay. If there's any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. What questions can you ask about this? Is static love? Yeah, but if there are anything needs to be made on you could say any not questions, but anyone got any what's to say? Any reflections? That's the word. Please feel free to share. Okay, so next one is Gambira versus deep versus shallow. So we have this picture here, a deep ocean and a shallow pool. This is just some water in a footprint. Okay. Next one. So the ocean, there can be great mountains underneath its waters. Yeah. So great mountains of ecstasy, say, but a shallow puddle cannot hide even a tiny pebble. Yeah. So another example he gives. Yeah. So the same way as a castle, a devotee is deep like an ocean, he is Gambira, can thus conceal the most powerful ecstasies. Yeah, and devotees in another disposition, even the smallest emotion visibly agitates a Komal devotee whose heart is shallow like a puddle. Yeah. And then we have also another way to understand it here is a big city and a small cottage. Yeah. So he gives another example to help us understand. So a grave and magnanimous heart is compared to a great city. Yeah. And a soft heart is compared to an insignificant cottage. So there may be lights, or even say Rupa Goswami says there may be great elephants in the big city, but no one's going to take much notice. I guess unless it's in London, going to take notice. But when such lights, or if there's an elephant near a small cottage, everyone can distinctly point them out. You know. So I thought it was interesting discussion that Rupa Goswami gives in the Nectar Devotion about the disposition of a devotee. So often devotees will be, they're at this stage of ecstatic love, and most times they're going to be conscientiously controlling their ecstasies. Otherwise, sometimes then it may manifest with in the devotees a different disposition, but still they would not want to make an exhibition of themselves if they're feeling a great ecstasy of love. Yeah, I think we gave the example last week where Prabhupada sometimes he would become overwhelmed with great ecstatic emotion, often when he was singing Jaya Radha Madhav in front of hundreds of devotees. And he wasn't able to control sometimes, and he would go into a trance of ecstasy with tears coming from his eyes. And when it was brought to Prabhupada's attention, Prabhupada was very embarrassed and he apologized, yeah, for his going into ecstasy. Devotees are asking what to do, Prabhupada. Should we chant Hare Krishna? Or should we stay quiet and let you be absorbed in ecstasy, or should we chant the holy name? I think Prabhupada, it's okay, you can chant. But Prabhupada was embarrassed. You know. So hopefully we'll have that problem one day, what to do with our ecstasies, how to manage our ecstasies. Yeah. Um, now, Rupa Goswami in Nectar Devotion, then he analyzes the heart in terms of its ability to experience emotion. So, yeah, he explains here. The lightning bolt is very strong and never becomes soft. Similarly, the hearts of those who are engaged in severe austerities and penances do not become easily softened. Yeah. So that's why often yoga or Ashtanga yoga can be an impediment to devotional service. And Rupa Goswami points this out elsewhere in Bhakti Smriti Sindhu. Yeah. It can make, if one is doing austerities on the path of Gyan, often it cannot be favorable because one is making one's heart hard. And the idea is that love of Krishna would experience emotions for Krishna. So even in our practice of devotional service as well, it's not about doing austerities. If we're just doing austerities for the sake of doing austerities, it may make our heart more hard than what it already is. Yeah. Now we can take on austerities as a consequence of devotional activity. Yeah, just like as distributing books. So that's your devotional activity. So there's different austerities which will naturally come with that. Yeah. Or cooking for the Lord. There's natural austerities that come with that, you're over the heat of the oven, etc. And there's a certain time has to be ready for. So it takes a lot of endeavor. So there's a bit of austerity there. So that's different. That's austerity that comes as a consequence of rendering devotional service. So we don't just do austerities to try and invoke devotion or it doesn't work like that. Yeah. Or we should take on devotional service, which naturally rendering devotional service in the material world is going to have its austerities. Yeah. So, but that we happily take on. Yeah. So, yeah, he goes on to describe a gold heart. So that's a lightning heart. So we don't want the lightning heart. There's a gold heart. becomes melted at high temperature. Unlike the thunderbolt, gold can melt, but only a very hot fire. Similarly, only extremely intense emotions can move a person with this disposition. I think the gopis accused Krishna of being hard-hearted, isn't it? When he disappeared from the rasa dance, there's a whole discussion they had. Yeah. And I was accusing Krishna of being hard-hearted. Then we have a shellac heart, shellac, which is Shellac. It's very fine. It's even a little fire can melt shellac. Yeah. So the shellac heart is very easily melted in slight temperature. I'm just reading now directly from Nectar Devotion. Okay. Even a little fire will melt shellac. Similarly, a strong emotion can move a person with this disposition. Then soft heart. A soft heart is compared to honey, to butter, and to nectar, and the condition of the mind is compared to sunshine. As honey and butter become melted even slight sunshine, soft-hearted persons become easily melted. Okay, again, remind you that these all have their manifestations on the material platform as well. So we can see this. Yeah. Nectar, however, is by nature always liquid, and the hearts of those who are in pure ecstatic love with Krishna are by nature always liquefied, just like nectar. Yeah. All right, so there's a little elaboration on the state of a devotee's heart in the stage of bhava and prema. It's very deep, and there's lots going on, and you may not always see it, may not always notice it, but some devotees who have a disposition, some ecstatic devotees, they're easily moved by the ecstasies of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so any questions or comments? That finishes this chapter. This finishes chapter 14, going on now to chapter 15. And 1 second, let's bring it up. I had it ready here. Okay, so we're going to leave the subject of love of God. Is that okay? Balanima is saying no. What can we possibly say about it, as we mentioned? You know, um, 1 second.
On that last
Things
topic.
around on my screen. Okay, so as we mentioned, now we're going into part 3 of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. So it has 30 chapters, so we're halfway, okay? And this 30 is divided into 5 parts. So Suddha Bhakti Cintamani has 30 chapters, which is divided into 5 parts. So we're now entering into part 3. Okay, part 1 is mixed devotional service. If you remember that we had a whole wonderful discussion on that. Part 2, which we just finished, is pure devotional service. And now we're discussing the different stages of pure devotion. Yeah. Then part 4 is, you could say, the essence of Suddha Bhakti Chintamani, and the reason why Maharaj wrote it. It's the part 4 is about the qualification to hear Krishna's pastimes. So remember, this Suddha Bhakti Chintamani is the introduction to the Krishna in Vrindavan series, of which which Maharaj writes about Krishna's pastimes. So the often question came up, am I qualified? Are we qualified to actually read these books? So, and having understood about pure devotion, stages of devotion, mixed devotion, then Maharaj would then describe the qualifications to hear Krishna's pastimes, or what pastimes we're qualified to hear. So that's part 4. Okay, we're just beginning part 3. So part 5 is a very interesting chapter. It's called The Path of Perfection. And it puts everything we've heard in these 4 parts, it puts them into a narrative, into a story of a devotee passing through these different stages, from the very beginning stages to to achieving perfection. And he puts it's very wonderfully written. It's written in a contemporary setting. Yeah, so that's part 5. Some of you may have read it. Very wonderful end to the Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. Right? But for now, here we are, chapter 15. So the first part of we've described in beginning, we've described mixed devotion and pure devotion and pure devotional service. So this part 3, we're going to begin from devotional service or from the acts that lead to a semblance of faith all the way to pure love. Okay. So you understand the activities that lead to a semblance of faith all the way to pure love. So a semblance of devotion. We describe some of this you're going to recognize from the early parts, from the first few chapters. But Maharaj here speaks about it very systematically, as in a gradual development. Yeah. So this particular part is going to go into some common misconceptions and some improper practices which may be an impediment in our devotional development. Yeah, that often come as we're practicing devotional service. So, and also what's going to be mentioned here also is the importance of the company of pure devotees. Yeah. So again, this chapter 15, it's going to outline the progression of devotional service. Yeah. All right. So we know where we're going. So first point spoken about actually is who are the pure devotees, and definition here. But first, who are pure devotees? So Maharaj describes it as the pure devotees are the Vaishnavas who are coming in disciplic succession from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they're strictly following to the best of their ability. They're strictly practicing devotional service as given by the Lord, and they're dedicating themselves to the mission of the Lord. Yeah, and this and Sanatana Goswami, he glorifies Haridas Thakur as being a perfect example of a Vaishnava. Someone like to read this? It'd be good to hear another voice out there.
I would like to read it.
Go ahead. Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
And sorry for being late.
No problem. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Prabhu. And thank you for having me. Some behave, well, the title is, Who are the Pure Devotees? Quote, some behave very well, but do not preach the cult of Krishna consciousness, whereas others preach, but do not behave properly. You simultaneously perform both duties in relation to the holy name by your personal behavior and by your preaching. Therefore, you are the spiritual master of the entire world, for you are the most advanced devotee in the world. Close quote, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya-lila 4, 102, 3 through 103.
Great, thank you. So this is one definition we can give of a pure devotee. So this definition, it actually it rules out so-called devotees who make a show of devotion and they don't have faith in Krishna. It's just a show. And also, it also highlights those who claim to have a great attraction or spontaneous attraction to Krishna. But it's just they don't have actually the prerequisite greed. Yeah. So Marge, describes it as this. So in other words, this study we're going to do here, chapter 15 and going onwards, it's not only meant to give us a clear, to weed out the imitators, but also it's to teach us how to recognize who is advanced and who is not, and who has the qualifications to advance and who does not. It's important for us to understand this, because if we can understand who devotees are by this study, we can then seek out and remain in their company. We can seek out the association of mature Vaishnavas. Yeah. This is what it means to associate with devotees. So then, because it's not just enough just to believe in Krishna, Maharaj brings this out. It's not just faith. Faith is not the be-all and end-all of a Krishna consciousness. Of course, it's essential to believe in Krishna, but belief, I could say, of faith, it's only the first step. It's only the first step. So just having faith is not enough to achieve pure love of Godhead. So it must be accompanied by that faith must lead to service. Yeah. And it must lead to the association of devotees. So in other words, this faith, it should lead, we should understand how to render favorable service. Yes, I believe in Krishna. Yes, often we meet that, isn't it? When you approach some well-meaning Hindu people, with all due respects. Yes, I am knowing, I have faith, I am knowing Krishna. But do you know how to render devotional service? Do you know what is a semblance of devotion? Oh, I am knowing. Yeah, so faith is not enough to achieve pure love. We have to understand about the science of. Oh, my video has gone off. Turn it on. Yeah, Hare Krishna back. Yeah, must be accompanied by service. So in other words, it's our duty to know how to render favorable service. All right, and yes. So this is what we want to do. We want to try and understand the science of serving Krishna. And so, and this is a wonderful example. This is given in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 24. It really highlights determination that we actually need. If one is determined, then surely success will come. Yeah, because Krishna will personally assist such a determined devotee. And it's a wonderful example that is given of this of the determination. Prabhupada actually says, as for determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. So what chance does that sparrow have of getting the eggs back? Not much chance. So sometimes we may think like that, or we should. What chance do I have of having Spuruti, Krishna manifesting, or Shakshat Darshan? What chance do I have of achieving what was described in Suddha Bhakti Cintamani on Bhava and Prema? Sometimes hearing it, we're thinking, what chance? Yeah. So the same way it is, but we should be just as determined as a sparrow. Yeah. So it laid its eggs. The ocean came and washed away the eggs, and a sparrow with its beak was trying to empty the ocean. Yeah. Futile. So sometimes it may seem like that with us. It may be futile. It may seem a futile effort. Yeah. But so the sparrow is a story. The sparrow began to pick out the water with a small beak, and everyone's Prabhupada described, everyone's laughing at her for impossible determination. So it seems like it became quite a topic because news got to Garuda. Yeah, everyone was laughing. News got to Garuda. So he became very compassionate. Of course, Garuda is a bird, and the small bird is also, so they're related. Prabhupada said he became compassionate to his small sister bird. So he came to see the sparrow. So he's so pleased with the determination that he promised to help. So Garuda threatened the ocean to return their eggs, lest he's going to take up the task. So, as you know, the ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus, the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Yeah. And then Prabhupada says here, this is in the purple, to the same place, 624. Srila Prabhupada explains, the practice of yoga, especially Bhakti yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job. But anyone who follows the principles with great determination surely gets the mercy of the Lord, for God helps those who help themselves. All right, let me read that again. Just the practice of yoga, especially Bhakti yoga in Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but anyone who follows the principles with great determination surely gets the mercy of the Lord, for God helps those who help themselves. Yeah. Perhaps we should write that out and put it on the wall so we can read it every day. Yeah. All right. So that's just a little introduction to this chapter 15, and we'll continue next week on the Vijay Krishna Prabhu. You had your hand raised?
Yes, just a quick question because of the passage I just read, which is related to personal behavior and preaching.
Yeah, Prachan Achar. Yeah.
Yes. And I remember, if I'm not wrong, that once when Srila Prabhupada was still on the planet, I think a journalist asked him, how would Srila Prabhupada define a Hare Krishna? And the answer was, well, given by Srila Prabhupada was, well, he would be a perfect gentleman. And based on all of this, my question would be, is it that Srila Prabhupada, when he gave this answer, he was implying that a perfect gentleman in his perspective would also be a preacher? That would be my question. Or in other words, is it possible for a perfect gentleman to be a perfect gentleman without being a preacher? That would be my exact question.
Yes, very good question as well.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, we see that some devotees will be actually fully engaged in preaching. We can see there's many different ways that one may be preaching, or one may be part of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So one may be actively engaged in very well-defined preaching activities. So it doesn't mean those who are not so engaged in full-time preaching activities that they are not qualified as devotees. Yeah, they may be preaching on a different scale, or they may be, say, preaching to their own family members, or they may be preaching by example. Yeah, as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean exactly that if you're not preaching, you're you're not considered to be possessed of a you're a gentleman. Yeah. But as much as it depends on their situation, we're very much, wherever we are situated, we want to try and share Krishna consciousness. But Haridas Thakur has given us an example of a primary example of someone who was really absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and he was very actively engaged as a preacher. Okay, so we might not all be distributing books, we may not be all going Harinam every day, but we're serving the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. And we're preaching to our grandchildren, perhaps, preaching to our wife, preaching to our kids. Somehow we're doing preaching according to our capacity. But very good point. Does that help, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, or any comments on that?
No comment, because as to be expected, you said it all. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Any closing questions? Chandravali, any comments from you? You're muted.
Yeah. No, it's good because I remember what the next part is going to be about. One devotee going through what we're going through.
Yeah.
Good, yes. So a good example, but to feel the end result is good. So we have to keep going.
Yeah. So remember this example as well. This wonderful example here that Prabhupada gives. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm sure we've all experienced as well is that it's not as if we're left high and dry and we don't experience anything till we get to these stages. No. Devotees have wonderful experiences even in the stage of sadhana, even in the stage of practice, and that's the mercy of Bhakti Devi, where she encourages devotees. Krishna is always encouraging us. I'm sure all of us here could give many different examples where you've definitely felt Krishna's presence in our life, and how he's arranging certain things, and you feel inspired, or really inspired at some point. So just keep that in mind. It's not as if where it's all left, everything only happens at the stage of bhava and prema, and that we discuss. Yeah, we discussed that. So next week we're looking at this subject here: acts that lead to a semblance of devotion. Okay. All right. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for joining us for this little discussion, finishing it on love of God, quite a subject. So how can we possibly understand it? We can read about it and hear about its wonders. We heard about also the disposition of heart of great devotees can be like gold or can be like cotton. There's lots of these devotees of bhava, lots of ecstasies that may be exhibited or may be hidden. Okay. So thank you, everyone. So I shall let you know if we change the time. Yeah.
Okay.
See how it goes. Yeah.
Be
Okay.
easier for me. I can join, but
Yeah. So okay. So Hari Hari.
Hari Hari.
Prabhupada
Thank
ki
you.
jai. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu Ji Jai.
Hari Hari.
Bye.
Ram Ram Ram. Hari Hari.